Okay, Wildcats. Today we're looking at Journal, page 77, Operations of Polynomials. Operations of Polynomial Steps. Step 1, Composition of Functions. Refer to page 10 for composition of function notes. Step 2, Distribute. Step 3, Combine like terms. Step 4, Write in standard form. All right, if you would, update your notes. Okay, now your notes are updated. Let's take a look at the examples. All right, perform the indicator operations, identify any restrictions. So f plus g of x. So what we're doing is we're plugging, we have f of x plus g of x. Okay, well, that's very straightforward. All we're doing is adding f of x and g of x. So f of x is 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 plus 2x minus 2. Okay, well, we combine terms. There's nothing to combine 2x squared with. So that's 2x squared. And again, I'm going to shade that out so I know I'm done with that. Now we combine the x's. 4x and 2x is plus 6x. And I'm going to shade that out because we're done with that. And then negative 6 and negative 2 combined to be minus 8. Now, in this case, there is no square root and there is no denominator, so we have no restrictions. Okay. All right, example 2. So we have f minus g of x. So that is f of x minus g of x. All right. So like example 1, except for instead of adding, we're subtracting. So we have 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 minus 2x minus 2. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to distribute a negative 1 here. So we're not going to do anything with the 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 yet. So after we distribute the negative 1. So negative 1 times 2x is minus 2x, and negative 1 times negative 2 is a positive 2. Now we combine like terms. There's nothing to combine the 2x squared, so we're done with that. 4x minus 2x is plus 2x. Done with that. And then negative 6 plus 2 is minus 4. Now, you notice there's no square roots and no denominator, so there are no restrictions. Okay, example 3. So now in this case, we have g of x times f of x. Okay, so g of x is 2x minus 2 times 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. Okay, so now we FOIL. 2x times 2x squared is 4x squared, or no, 4x cubed. It's a terrible 3. Let me rewrite that. 4x cubed. 2x times 4x is plus 8x squared. 2x times negative 6 is minus 12x. Now, negative 2 times 2x squared is minus 4x squared. Notice I'm lining up the x squareds. Negative 2 times 4x is minus 8x. Negative 2 times negative 6 is a plus 12. Well, this equals 4x cubed plus 4x squared minus 20x plus 12. Now, again, there's no square root and there's no denominator, so there's no restrictions. All right, go ahead and finish up example 3. All right, so now example 4. We have, I think we're going to need space, so do this here, but this is f of x divided by g of x. Okay, so f of x is 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 divided by 2x minus 2. Now, we're going to need to factor the numerator and denominator. This is darker so you can see the division. Okay, so let's factor the numerator first. First off, we can factor out a 2 from everything. So that's 2 times 1x squared plus 2x minus 3. And we can also factor 2 from the denominator. So that's 2 times x minus 1. Well, the 2's divide and become 1. Now let's factor the numerator again. So that's, we know parentheses, divided by x minus 1. Well, we know x and x makes x squared. And we need to find the combination that makes -3 and combines to be +2. Well, that's easy. +3 and minus 1. Because 3 times -1 is -3, and 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay? Now, I'm actually going to move the x minus 1 underneath here, because you should see that anything divided by itself is 1. So you're left with x plus 3, which leaves us with no denominator, no square root, so there's no restrictions. All right, go ahead and finish up examples 1 through 4. All right, now let's take a look at example 5. Perform the indicated operation. Identify any restrictions. So we have f minus g of x. Well, we know that that is f of x minus g of x. Well, f of x is x squared minus 4 minus g of x, which is x minus 2. I'm going to put a 1 in front of the x and put a 1 in front of the parentheses. And we're going to distribute the -1. So you have x squared minus 4 minus 1x plus 2. Combine like terms. So we have x squared minus 1x minus 2. Now, you notice there's no square root and there's no denominator, so this has no restrictions. All right, example 6. So what we have here is g of x divided by f of x. Now, because this has a denominator, there is a chance for restrictions, okay? Also, it has a square root. Nope. G of x, is x minus 2, and f of x is x squared minus 4. Okay? So now, we're going to factor the numerator and denominator. Well, the numerator is already factored. It's x minus 2. There's nothing you can do with that. But we know that x squared minus 4 factors to be x minus 2 times x plus 4. Well, you know, anything divided by itself is 1. So this is equal to 1 divided by x plus 4. Oh, wait a second. Almost made a mistake. That should be x minus 2, x plus 2. That's why it's important you always double check your work. And what I caught was, well, I know that negative 2 times 4 is 8, not 4. So I thought, well, what should it be? Negative 2 times a positive 2 is a negative 4. So now, to find a restriction, what basically you cannot have is 1 divided by 0, because we know that's undefined. Okay? So we need to find out what number makes this 0 makes it undefined would be a restriction. So we said x plus 2 not equal to 0. We want to find out when it's not equal to 0. Well, that's x not equal to negative 2 is the restriction. And the reason why it's a restriction is because the denominator can't be 0, and negative 2 makes it 0. All right, go ahead and finish up example 6. All right, example 7. So this is g of x divided by h of x. Okay, so g of x is x minus 2, and h of x is the square root of x plus 3. So there's definitely a chance for restrictions because we have a denominator and we have a square root. Okay? All right, in this case, there's really no need to simplify or reduce this any. So we have two scenarios. For one, we can't have this to be 0, so we got to find out when it's 0. But also, the number inside the parentheses can't or has to be greater than or equal to 0, okay, because you can't have a negative, okay? So for the restriction, we're going to set x plus 3 greater than 0, okay? So we subtract 3 from both sides, so x has to be greater than negative 3 is your restriction. Because negative 3 makes that 0, which makes this undefined, but anything that does not meet here would make this imaginary, and you can't have imaginary as well, okay? All right, example 8. All right, so here we have g of x times k of x. Okay, so g of x is x minus 2 times k of x, which is 1 divided by x cubed minus 2x squared minus 9x plus 18. So basically we need to factor the denominator. So we're left with x minus 2 in the numerator divided by, now we need to factor the denominator. Okay, so it's factored by grouping because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. We can factor out an x squared, which leaves x minus 2. And here we can factor out a minus 9, which leaves x minus 2. Well, you can factor by grouping here. So now we're left with x minus 2 divided by x squared minus 9 times x minus 2. Well, we know that x squared minus 9 can be factored. So that leaves x minus 2 divided by, well, let's go ahead and put the x minus 2 in front. Oh, not 3x minus 2. And then that's x minus 3, x plus 3. And in essence, times 1. Well, this divides and becomes 1. Okay, so this reduces to be 1 divided by x minus 3, x plus 3. Well, we need to set these equal to 0 to find the restrictions. Well, when you do that, you find that x equals 3, because 3 minus 3 is 0, and x equals negative 3, because that makes that 0, are your restrictions. All right, go ahead and finish up example 8 and start working on your assignment, and have a wonderful Wildcat day.